In 1927, a group of the most brilliant physicists in history gathered in Brussels for a conference that would quietly dismantle everything humanity believed about reality. They didn't intend to. They were trying to solve a technical problem, a strange behavior in subatomic particles that refused to follow the rules of classical physics. What they discovered instead was something so disturbing that some of them spent the rest of their lives trying to disprove their own findings. Einstein called it spooky. Bohr called it the end of classical reality. Heisenberg said it meant we could never observe the universe without changing it. What they found, and what has been experimentally confirmed thousands of times in the centuries since, is that reality, at its most fundamental level, does not exist in a fixed state until it is observed. Matter is not solid until something looks at it. Particles do not have a definite position until they are measured. The physical universe, at the quantum level, exists as a field of probability, not a field of fact. That discovery should have changed everything about how human beings understand their relationship with reality. It should have been the single most important piece of information ever communicated to the general public. It wasn't. It was buried in academic journals and physics classrooms and never translated into what it actually means for your life. This video translates it. I'm going to walk you through 4 quantum principles. Real principles, experimentally verified, not metaphors, and show you precisely how each one connects to the mechanism of manifestation, not loosely, not poetically, mechanistically. Principle number 4 connects everything to a mechanism so powerful that once you understand it, every manifestation technique you've ever practiced will suddenly make sense. You'll see the physics underneath the spirituality. And the physics is stranger than the spirituality ever was. 4 principles, real science, real implications. Let's start with the one that broke physics. The first principle is the one that started the crisis. It's called superposition. And what it reveals about reality is this. At the quantum level, particles do not exist in one definite state. They exist in all possible states simultaneously until the moment they are observed or measured, at which point they collapse from infinite possibility into one specific reality. This is not a theory. This has been demonstrated in laboratory experiments thousands of times, beginning with the famous double-slit experiment and continuing through increasingly sophisticated tests over the past 100 years. The results are always the same. Before observation, everything is possible. After observation, one thing becomes real. The standard example is this. Fire a particle at a barrier with 2 slits. If nobody observes which slit the particle goes through, it behaves as though it went through both slits simultaneously, creating an interference pattern that is only possible if the particle was in 2 places at once. But the moment you set up a detector to observe which slit it goes through, the particle instantly behaves as though it only went through one. The act of observation collapses the superposition. Infinite possibilities become one actuality. Now, here's where this connects to your life. And I want to be precise about this because this connection has been oversimplified by a lot of people, and I want to do it justice. Superposition tells us that at the most fundamental layer of physical reality, outcomes are not predetermined. They are probabilistic. The universe at the quantum level is a field of potential, not a field of fixed events. What converts potential into actuality is interaction, measurement, observation, engagement. The philosophical implication is enormous. Reality is not a finished structure you walk through. It's an unfinished structure that solidifies as you engage with it. And that means your engagement with reality, how you observe it, what you pay attention to, what you expect to find, is not separate from what reality becomes. It's part of the process that determines it. This doesn't mean you can wish a car into your driveway by thinking about it. Quantum effects at the subatomic level don't scale directly to everyday objects in the simple way some people suggest. But the principle, the deep principle beneath superposition, applies at every scale. Reality is participatory. You are not a passive witness to a fixed universe. You are an active participant in a probabilistic one. And participants influence outcomes. That is what the science says. The practical implication of superposition for manifestation is this: before you set an intention, before you direct your focus, before you commit your energy to a specific outcome, multiple outcomes are possible. Your reality is in superposition. Many versions of the next month, the next year, the next decade exist as probability, not as fantasy, as genuine physics-backed potential. The question is not whether multiple possibilities exist. The science has answered that. The question is, what collapses the superposition? What converts possibility into the one reality you actually experience? And that question leads directly to principle number 2. Principle number 2 is the one that physicists have spent a century arguing about. Not because the data is unclear, the data is overwhelming, because the implications are too unsettling for many scientists to accept. The observer effect. The act of observing a quantum system changes the behavior of the system being observed. Observation is not passive recording. It is active participation. The observer does not just witness reality. The observer helps determine which reality manifests. This was first demonstrated in the double-slit experiment I just described. When nobody observes the particle, it exists in superposition, passing through both slits. The moment an observer measures it, the superposition collapses into one state. The particle didn't decide on its own. The observation triggered the collapse. Remove the observer, and the superposition returns. This has been replicated in increasingly dramatic ways. Delayed choice experiments have shown that the decision to observe can retroactively affect the behavior of a particle, meaning the observer's choice in the present appears to influence what the particle did in the past. Wheeler's delayed choice experiment demonstrated this in the 1980s, and it has been confirmed multiple times since. The implications are staggering. Observation doesn't just affect the present moment. It reaches backward. What the observer effect demonstrates at the level of experimental physics is that consciousness and physical reality are not separate systems. They are entangled. The observer cannot be extracted from the observed. The mind cannot be separated from the matter it engages with. They are part of one process. And this is where the connection to manifestation becomes precise. Every manifestation technique ever developed, visualization, intention setting, focused attention, emotional alignment, belief work, every single one of them is a method for directing observation, for choosing what to collapse from the field of possibility into actual experience. When you visualize a specific outcome, you are acting as the observer of a potential reality. You are collapsing the superposition in a specific direction. When you hold an intention with emotional charge, you are strengthening the observation, making the collapse more coherent, more focused, more directional. When you believe something is possible, you are permitting the observation. When you believe it's impossible, you are withdrawing observation from that possibility, leaving it uncollapsed, unrealized, stuck in probability. Belief is not magic. Belief is observation permission. It determines which possibilities your consciousness is willing to engage with. And the possibilities you engage with are the possibilities that collapse into reality. The ones you refuse to observe remain in superposition, real in potential, absent in experience. Now, I want to address the obvious objection. This is quantum physics. It applies to subatomic particles, not to jobs and relationships and bank accounts. And at the direct, literal level, that's true. No physicist would claim that a single photon's behavior in a lab scales identically to macroscopic human experience. But here's what even the most conservative interpretation of quantum mechanics acknowledges: the fundamental building blocks of all physical reality. Every atom in your body, every molecule in the chair you're sitting on, every particle that constitutes what you call the physical world, those building blocks obey quantum laws. They exist in superposition. They respond to observation. They behave probabilistically. The material world you experience every day is built from components that do not follow the rules of fixed, predetermined reality. The question is not whether quantum effects are real. They are the most experimentally verified phenomena in all of science. The question is whether the participatory nature of reality stops at the subatomic level, or whether it's a principle that echoes, scales, and expresses through every layer of the reality built from those quantum foundations. And an increasing number of physicists, neuroscientists, and consciousness researchers are concluding that it doesn't stop. That the participatory principle extends far beyond the laboratory. You don't need to accept that conclusion on faith. You can observe it empirically, in your own life. Because every time you've shifted your beliefs and watched your reality reorganize accordingly, every time you've changed your focus and watched new circumstances appear, every time your expectation predicted your experience, you were observing the principle at work, not at the quantum level, at the human level, where it arguably matters most. Principle number 3 is the one Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance. He hated it. He spent years trying to disprove it. He failed because it's real, and it might be the most important principle for understanding why your internal state produces your external reality. Quantum entanglement. When two particles interact, they become entangled, connected in such a way that the state of one instantaneously affects the state of the other, regardless of the distance between them. Not at the speed of light, instantaneously, as though the distance doesn't exist. Two entangled particles can be separated by the width of a galaxy. Measure one, and the other responds immediately, not through any known signal, not through any detectable transmission, through a connection that transcends the physical space between them, as though at some deeper level they were never actually separate, as though separation itself is an illusion that only exists at the surface layer of reality. Now consider this in the context of your life. You have an inner state, your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, nervous system patterns, self-image. And you have an outer reality, your circumstances, relationships, finances, health, opportunities. And you've been taught to treat these as two separate systems. The inner world is subjective. It's just your mind. The outer world is objective. It's real reality. And the two are supposedly independent. Entanglement suggests they're not independent. Entanglement suggests that your inner state and your outer reality are not two separate systems that occasionally influence each other. They are one system expressing itself through two apparently different domains. Connected, correlated, entangled. Change one, and the other responds. Not because of a signal traveling between them, but because they were never separate to begin with. This is what every mystic in every tradition has been saying for thousands of years. As within, so without. The kingdom of heaven is within you. You do not see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. These are not poetic metaphors. They are descriptions of an entangled system. The inside and the outside are one reality viewed from two perspectives. Watch how this operates in daily life. You wake up in a state of anxiety. Nothing has happened yet. No event, no trigger, no external cause. Just anxiety. And within hours, your outer reality begins producing experiences that match the anxiety. Conflicts arise, plans go wrong, people respond to you with friction. The day goes bad, not because bad things were destined to happen, but because your inner state and your outer reality are entangled. The anxiety inside produced the corresponding pattern outside. Not metaphorically, systemically. Now reverse it. You wake up in a state of calm clarity, centered, open, present, and the day unfolds with a smoothness that feels almost orchestrated. Opportunities appear, conversations flow, things align without effort, not because you got lucky, because the inner state and the outer reality are producing one coherent pattern. The clarity inside expressed itself as clarity outside. Same entangled system, different input. This is not positive thinking. This is not good vibes attract good things. This is a principle observed at the deepest level of physical reality, expressing itself through human experience. Connected systems produce correlated outcomes. Your inner state and your outer reality are a connected system. They always have been. And the state you inhabit internally is correlated, not metaphorically, not coincidentally, but systemically, with the reality you experience externally. The practical application of entanglement is this: stop trying to fix the outer reality first. When your circumstances are wrong, the instinct is to change the circumstances. Fix the job, fix the relationship, fix the finances, rearrange the external pieces. But if the inner state hasn't changed, the new circumstances will reorganize themselves to match the old internal pattern, because the system is entangled. You can rearrange the outer without changing the inner, and the outer will snap back. Every time, change the inner state first, not as a technique, as a recognition of how entangled systems work. When you shift the internal pattern, the beliefs, the emotions, the nervous system tone, the self-image, the external pattern has no choice but to shift with it. Not because you willed it, because they're one system, and one system cannot produce two contradictory patterns. Change the input, and the entire system reorganizes. That's not manifestation. That's physics. The fourth principle brings the first three together into a single mechanism. And once you see it, you'll understand manifestation not as a belief system, but as a consequence of how reality is structured at the most fundamental level. The quantum field, sometimes called the zero-point field, is the underlying fabric from which all physical reality emerges. It is not empty space. It is a field of infinite potential energy, vibrating with every possible configuration of matter and experience. Everything that exists, every particle, every atom, every molecule, every object, every body, every star, is a pattern of energy emerging from this field. You are not in the field. You are not separate from the field looking at it from the outside. You are a pattern of the field. Your body is the field expressing itself as a human organism. Your thoughts are the field organizing itself as consciousness. Your emotions are the field vibrating at specific frequencies. There is no boundary between you and the field. There is only the field and the patterns it generates. And you are one of those patterns. Now watch what happens when you hold all four principles together. The field exists in superposition, all possibilities present simultaneously. That's principle 1. Your consciousness acts as the observer that collapses specific possibilities from that field into experienced reality. That's principle 2. Your inner state is entangled with your outer reality because they're both patterns in the same field, not two things, one thing viewed from two angles. That's principle 3. And principle 4 unifies them. You are a pattern in a field of infinite possibility. Your consciousness selects which possibilities become real through observation. Your internal state determines which observations you make, and the field, responsive, entangled, probabilistic, produces the reality that matches your pattern, not as reward, not as punishment, as resonance. The field responds to the frequency of the pattern within it, your frequency, your state, your self-image, your belief, your observation. This is why visualization works. When you vividly imagine a reality, you're collapsing a possibility from the field through focused observation. The more vivid, the more emotionally charged, the more neurologically real the visualization becomes, the more coherent the observation, and the more precisely the field responds. This is why affirmations work. When they work, an affirmation that you believe, that you feel in your body, that resonates with your self-image, is a coherent observation of a specific possibility. The field responds. An affirmation you repeat mechanically without belief or feeling is an incoherent signal. The field doesn't respond to words, it responds to the frequency beneath the words. This is why emotional state matters. Your emotions are not separate from the field. They are field frequencies. Gratitude, love, excitement, certainty. These are high coherence frequencies that the field responds to with precision. Fear, doubt, resentment, guilt. These are also frequencies, and the field responds to them equally precisely. The field is not moral. It's mechanical. It responds to frequency. Whatever frequency you're broadcasting, the field produces the corresponding pattern in your external reality. This is why belief matters. Belief determines what you're willing to observe, and observation is the mechanism of collapse. If you believe something is impossible, you withdraw observation from that possibility. It remains in superposition, available in the field, but uncollapsed in your experience. If you believe it's possible, observation is permitted, collapse begins, and the field starts organizing toward that reality. Every manifestation technique is a method for interacting with the quantum field. Visualization is focused observation. Affirmation is frequency selection. Emotional alignment is field coherence. Belief work is observation permission. Gratitude is frequency elevation. They all do the same thing through different mechanisms. They select a possibility from the field and collapse it into experienced reality through the only instrument capable of doing so: your consciousness. The practice that emerges from understanding the quantum field is not a technique, it's an orientation. Every morning, before your habitual thoughts activate, before the old frequency boots up, you have a window, a moment where the field is responsive and your consciousness is the selector. In that window, choose, not through words, through state, through felt reality, through the somatic experience of the reality you're selecting from the field. Feel the frequency of the life you're collapsing into reality, not the mental picture, the body state, the emotional tone, the nervous system signature of the person living that life. Hold it long enough for your system to register it as real, and then enter your day from that frequency, not hoping the field responds, knowing that it must, because the field doesn't have opinions. It has physics, and the physics says the field matches the frequency of the observer every time. You are not asking the universe for something. You are selecting a pattern from the field of all possible patterns and collapsing it into your experience through the quality of your observation. That is not mysticism. That is quantum mechanics, applied to the only instrument in the universe capable of conscious observation. You. Let me show you what you just learned. Superposition. Reality exists as a field of probability, not a field of fact. Multiple outcomes are genuinely possible at any moment. Your reality is not fixed. It is open. The science is clear on this. The observer effect. Your consciousness is not a passive witness. It is an active participant in determining which possibility becomes real. Observation collapses probability into actuality, and you are the observer, every moment of every day. Entanglement. Your inner state and your outer reality are not separate systems. They are one entangled system producing correlated patterns. Change the inner state, and the outer reality reorganizes accordingly, not eventually, systemically. The quantum field, everything including you, is a pattern of energy in a field of infinite potential. Your consciousness selects from that field through observation. Your frequency determines which pattern the field produces. Every manifestation technique ever created is a method for interacting with this field through the only instrument that can collapse possibility into reality, your awareness. Manifestation was never magic. It was never wishful thinking. It was never pseudoscience or delusion or spiritual bypassing. It was always physics. Physics that has been experimentally verified for 100 years. Physics that the scientific community has confirmed and reconfirmed through thousands of experiments. Physics that describes a reality far stranger, far more participatory, and far more responsive to consciousness than the fixed, mechanical universe you were taught about in school. The mystics weren't wrong. They were early. They described the participatory nature of reality through the language available to them. Spiritual language, metaphorical language, experiential language. And now, a century after the Solvay Conference, physics has arrived at the same conclusion through mathematics and experiment. Reality is not fixed. Consciousness matters. And the observer cannot be separated from what is observed. That is the quantum foundation of manifestation, not a metaphor borrowed from science. The science itself, applied to the question that matters most. How does your consciousness participate in creating the reality you experience? The answer, according to 100 years of experimental physics, completely. In the comments, tell me which principle shifted something. Was it superposition? The realization that reality is probabilistic, not fixed. The observer effect, that your attention doesn't watch reality but participates in building it. Entanglement, that your inner state and outer reality are one system. Or the quantum field, that every technique is an interaction with the same underlying mechanism. Name the one that changed something. Because the principle that shifts the most is the one your current understanding was missing. The science was always there. The connection was always real. And the physics has been saying the same thing the mystics said for millennia. You are not watching reality. You are creating it. That is not belief. That is the most experimentally verified conclusion in the history of physics. And it changes everything.